Welcome back to the Book Nook, Spring 2023 edition. I want to go over my top 10 recommendations for spring reading for 2023. So the first one is James Herriot, who will be a classic author to some and maybe unknown to others. So James Herriot, I think, was a Scottish veterinarian in the English countryside, and he wrote a lot of his stories in what are now really famous books of just kind of some modified story versions of the funny things that happened to him, funny things he experienced as a vet in the English countryside in kind of mid-century 1900s. And, you know, a lot of the stories are inspiring, a lot of them are heartwarming, a lot of them are really, really funny, and basically all of them are interesting. Anything by James Herriot is so charming, it's so pastoral, and just lovely. Books 2 and 3 are books that I could not get my hands on in time to do this video, and they're probably my favorite books to read in spring. It's Patrice Kendall, who's written several other things. The two books that I want to highlight of hers are Keeping the Castle and A School for Brides. That's numbers 2 and 3. The reason I recommend these books for spring is I think they also take place in the English countryside, but basically Keeping the Castle is kind of a riff on I Capture the Castle by Dodie Smith, which I read and mostly enjoyed, but I felt sort of sad. It had kind of in my opinion, it wasn't a very Jane Austen ending. Like, people don't end up married, things aren't all neatly tied up with a bow. And what Patrice Kendall does is do a riff on that and do kind of that Jane Austen-esque, very fun, pastoral, you know, kind of historical romance. But what I love and treasure about those books the most is that they're hysterically funny. Some of the funniest books I have ever read. These are some of the funniest, most charming books in the world, and they are perfection for spring. They are a confection, a delight. If you want to do yourself a favor to giggle or just laugh if you don't want to giggle, and just really enjoy a very kind of spring-like, very light, feathery, cream puff concoction of a book that are just pure fun from start to finish. If you're a Jane Austen fan or any kind of historical romance fan, Scarlet Pimpernel, whatnot, these are books for you. They're just treasures. I wish I could give a copy of one to everybody I know. They're great. Number 4, Gail Carson Levine's Ella Enchanted. Gail Carson Levine is a great author to read in spring, in general. Ella Enchanted was Gail Carson Levine's first book that she ever wrote. It's a retelling or a riff on the Cinderella classic story. It's about if Cinderella, if she was enchanted to be required to do what anyone told her. If someone gave her a direct command, she would have to do it. And it's set in Gail Carson Levine's unique fantasy world, but it's kind of a typical, like, medieval fantasy fairy world. You know, it has magic. Very funny as well, such a classic, and perfect for spring. It's so light, it's so fun, it's so magical. If you just want like a fun beach read that's completely clean, but, you know, super fun for spring or summer, Gail Carson Levine is your person. She will never fail you. She's an excellent author, and she's just so good. So basically all of these books are sort of part of a series, everything that I'm recommending. If you like any of these books, that same author has done at least one other book that you can read and enjoy that'll be really similar. So that's fun. So this is the first in a series, and the first book I ever read by Mary E. Pearson. This is number 5, Mary E. Pearson's The Adoration of Jenna Fox. So this is basically a book about a 17-year-old girl who's awoken from a year-long coma. There was an accident that got her into this coma, and she's trying to figure out what actually happened after that accident, what has happened to her, why it took her so long to wake up, who she really is, what's going on. And it's not necessarily your typical coming-of-age story. It has a definite twist, and I'm not going to spoil it at all. And if you love this book, Mary E. Pearson wrote at least 2 other follow-up books to this, both of which I immensely enjoyed. Mary E. Pearson is an author to watch. I love everything she has ever written. This woman is a powerhouse. She's fantastic. I think she's some kind of Catholic or something. I really enjoy all of her stuff. Number 6. Green Angel by Alice Hoffman. So 15-year-old Green, that's the name of the main character in this book, loses her family in a terrible disaster, and she is haunted by her loss and by her past. So this is what's called magical realism. I don't even know if Alice Hoffman may have kind of semi-invented this genre, at least for young adult fiction, magical realism, but definitely all of her work. If you've ever heard of Practical Magic, the book she wrote, and there's a movie based off the book, she kind of does magical realism with the best of them. Probably the top magical realism young adult author that I know of. And Green Angel is the first of a duology. The second book, again, I could not get a hold of it from the library, but the second book, again, is called Green Witch. Don't be put off by that title if that sounds a little kind of sketch to you. It's not. It's just magical realism. What I love about this book, these two books, which I don't have the second book with me, but I'll put it on the screen, Green Angel and Green Witch, is the themes of deep love. And these books are actually highly philosophical in a very light and relaxing way. Just beautiful, light, poetic writing about themes of love and loss and recovery from grief, deep grief. And it has always really resonated with me ever since I first read this book as a teenager. I've reread Green Angel and Green Witch over and over and over again, especially in spring. If you really resonate or are interested in themes of grief, if you yourself have recently gone through grief, deep loss, or know someone that maybe you'd like to comfort, or you wish you knew how to comfort about a deep loss, deep grief in their life, or wish someone could kind of see you, this book is really about how grief can define us in really painful ways. And how do we overcome that, or how do we live through that? And this girl, the protagonist, loses her entire family all in one go. She's the only one that survives. And there is a lot of ruminating on that in this book. How does she not only live with that, how does she make a life by herself? Why is it worth it to make a life by herself when everyone she's ever loved deeply is gone? And there's something really meaningful and powerful about that in a very gentle way. Number 7, this is also the start of a series / midway through a series, Terry Pratchett's The Wee Freeman. Tiffany Aching is a young witch-to-be in a fantasy realm. She is all that stands between the monsters of fairyland and the warm green chalk country that is her home, armed with only a frying pan and her common sense. Terry Pratchett, may he rest in peace. And Terry Pratchett was a genius. Witty, of course. I mean, everyone knows that about Terry Pratchett that's read him. But he's not just witty, he is full of heart and charm, and he can be, creepy and scary. He writes villains in his stories that are very convincingly scary, but yet he also has so much warmth in his writing and so much personality for every character that he writes. I had never heard of Terry Pratchett. As a lifelong reader, it was sort of shocking to me that this internationally best-selling author, I could have no clue who he was for my entire life up till the time I was 21 or something. But I randomly discovered it, and I can never remember which one it was first. If it was The Wee Freeman, or if it was Unseen Academicals. But one of those two books I read first. The Wee Freeman is funny. It's everything you love about Terry Pratchett. It's, reasonably clean and perfect for teens, but it can be enjoyed by adults. The Wee Freeman is about these small blue men that help this young witch that's the protagonist of the story. They help her kind of in her life. And the Wee Freeman, they're Scottish. The Wee Freeman, the Knack McFeagle, they are charmingly roguish in every way that you can think of. You just have to read it. It's perfect for spring. Obviously, Terry Pratchett is perfect for any time of year, any of his books. But in particular, this kind of mini-series within the Discworld, it's basically, I think it's just called the Tiffany Aching books. But the Tiffany Aching Quartet, which it makes me sad. The last book that Terry Pratchett ever wrote, he had dementia in his final years, which was his ultimate cause of death, to my knowledge. His last book that he ever wrote was the final Tiffany Aching book, The Shepherd's Crown. And it was really good. If you want someone that'll make you laugh and hit you in the gut, in the feels, Terry Pratchett is your guy. And The Wee Freeman is, if you've never read anything by Terry Pratchett, it's the perfect place to start. Number 8, Cinder, is the first in the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer, who at the time was a relative unknown. I remember reading Cinder when it first came out, and I was blown away by how incredibly well done it was. So Cinder, in case it wasn't obvious from the shoe as well, is another retelling of Cinderella. So the deal with the Lunar Chronicles is that there are 4 main books. This is the first one, and in each of the book, it is a retelling of a different fairy tale, but they're all set in the same universe, and all the characters end up interacting with each other by the end of the series. It built on itself, which at the time blew my mind. And I just think that takes so much skill to not only retell fairy tales in this consistently really good way, but then to do it sequentially and have all the characters become part of this overarching story arc that resolves in the final book and everybody gets a resolution from all the previous books. Cinder is incredible, retelling of Cinderella, retold in kind of a futuristic sci-fi punk world. Cinder is a cyborg, and of course she is subservient to the usual cast of people. But she does end up meeting the prince of her realm, and they do become friends. She gets caught up in all this political intrigue and all this, intergalactic stuff going on. So it's super fun. If you enjoy fairy tale retellings, if you enjoy sci-fi, if you enjoy kind of pop punk fiction, you're gonna love these books. Number 9, Surviving the Applewhites by Stephanie S. Tolan. So this won the Newbery Honor Award, which is pretty impressive. So this is a children's fiction book. I read the fire out of this book as a 9, 10, 11-year-old. I loved it so much, I read it over and over and over again. This is a book about a kid named Jake who kind of has trouble. He's in middle school and he keeps getting thrown out of schools because he kind of is a bit of a sort of a pre-juvenile delinquent / actual juvenile delinquent. And the only place left to take him after all these schools that he's gone through is this homeschool run by this family. And he ends up interacting with all the kind of crazy, artsy, hippie, funky people in this family who are all very charming and sort of bizarre. So there's just a lot of hijinks that happen. This is just a very charming book. This is just a very good book on how to kind of reorient your perspective towards your possessions and how to work with them in a way that works for you and not be overwhelmed by them. People like my sister, she says that really doesn't work for her. Obviously not everybody is going to be a fan of every cleaning and tidying method on the planet. But for me, Tidying Lady was just a complete revolution. And sorry, I call her Tidying Lady. That's what I call her. But her name is Marie Kondo, and of course, she's still very famous. I just saw an article this morning about how she's got this line of products to organize your bathroom with. So she is very much still current and relevant. But I just encourage you, ignore the Netflix stuff. Ignore all the naysayers online who are all, we're into maximalism, we're over Marie Kondo. Don't listen to them. She is incredible. She will change your life. Even if you don't agree with her method, you can figure out why you don't agree, and it can still help you make some headway with your possessions. So, kind of a tongue-in-cheek spring read. It's perfect for spring cleaning, perfect for getting your house in order. That's number 10. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this list. As always, feel free to like or comment about any of these books that you have read yourself and enjoyed, any recommendations that you might have, your favorite books to read in spring, or any types of book recommendations that you would like to hear. For example, I'm thinking of doing a compilation of all of my favorite dragon books because there are a ton, and that's kind of a separate thing from seasonal reads. Hope you have a good rest of your week, and I'll see you next time. Bye.